and your affiliations of one sort or another.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Are we focusing on Mississippi, or this is just history period?
Well, we're going to do as much. See, I'm like you. You know, I spent. Well, I'm worse than you. In fact, I spent 36 years in the North.
Right. That's right.
Right, before I even came to Mississippi.
Right.
So I have a whole history
Right.
outside of the state of Mississippi, and then I've been here for 40 years on top of that.
Right.
So, you know,
Okay.
so we'll take it all.
Okay. Then.
We would like to hear all about you.
Okay, then that'll work.
Okay, all right. This is Owen Brooks. I am here with attorney Chokwe Lumumba, who is a practicing attorney here in Jackson, Mississippi, and had a very prominent role in the civil rights movement back in the late 60s and early 70s. And I'll begin by asking, Brother Chokwe, do you agree to be interviewed at this time, sir?
Yes, I do.
We have your permission.
Yes, you do.
All right, and then I would ask you to start us off, Brother Chokwe, with some understanding about your background, what part of the country you came from, where, when you were born, where you went to school, that kind of information would be important to our interview.
Yeah. Let me just quickly say, genealogically, actually my family supposed to surfaced in this country in West Point.
West Point, Mississippi?
Mississippi initially. Of course, my great, I don't know if I got enough greats on there, grandmother came here as a slave.
Yes.
But she wound up, I think that when they were first freed from a plantation situation, they were in West Point, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. This is studies done by relatives of mine. From there, they went to Alabama, mm-hmm. and apparently almost lock, stock, and barrel went to Alabama, where we, in Chambers County, which is where a little place called Lafayette, or Lafayette, depending on how you want to pronounce it, exists. Mm-hmm. And our claim to fame is that Joe Lewis is our relative. His name is actually Joe Lewis Barrow.
Barrow.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. But Joe Lewis is my second cousin.
Oh.
He's my mother's first cousin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they, from there, that's where our family is known to have, matriculated. And we have people that went all over the country from there, and we still have people heavily situated in Chambers County in Alabama. Mm-hmm. I was actually born in Detroit. My mother left Alabama and wound up in Detroit, Michigan, where she met my father, who was from Coffeyville, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And that's another study there, which we don't know as much about, but we do know his last name was Talia Farrell, which is the middle name of Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
And some say at one point was his last name, but in any event, we know that we were connected to a plantation in the Virginia area, and at some point, some of the people migrated either with the plantation owner, who was Major Talia Farrell in the United States Army, either went with him out west as he went out there fighting our Native American brothers and sisters, or they later on migrated in that direction. So that's.
Would he have been one of the horse soldiers?
Well, we no, maybe we don't really know for sure, but we do know that my father's lineage comes from Virginia and it goes out to the west, and with most of us who are African in this country, we start here in the South and we migrate out. Yeah, right. So, but he was born in Coffeyville, Kansas, which is not far from Oklahoma, right near Oklahoma. But anyway, they met in Detroit and had 8 children, and I was the second of the 8. I was the second of the 8th child. My dad would be considered as a worker. He was a working class brother who had numerous jobs. He reminded me of the West Indians. You say you got this job, but he literally worked in a lot of things. He worked at a gas station. He worked in the mill, steel mill. He did work as a factory worker. If you worked in Detroit, you probably at some point worked as a factory worker. And he wound up situated with the poverty program where they hired people to become involved in finding other folks jobs and things of that nature. That was a part of it that he was situated in. And it was the Catholic branch of the poverty program, Archdiocesan Opportunity Program. That's what it was called in Detroit. In Detroit. My mama during my lifetime, when I was at home, mainly was a homemaker, but she had also worked in department stores as before my coming along, as a elevator operator and things of that, and did that at Hudson's. Hudson's is a major department store in the city of Detroit.
Okay.
And that was kind of so the working class family on the west side of Detroit. I think that.
Did you, as a child, ever have occasion to visit West Point, Mississippi? Did your mother ever come back?
No. My mother they visit constantly.
Your mother did visit.
They visit constantly in Alabama.
Oh, in Alabama.
But they never did visit West Point. In fact, I don't believe that my mother knew the connection to West Point.
Is that right?
Until we wound up going to, and this was in the 70s. We went to, let me say 70s or 80s probably.
Yes.
We went to a family reunion, and we were greeted with this genealogical book, and it told us about West Point.
Now the family reunion was in Alabama?
Actually, the family reunion at this point was in New Jersey. It
was
in New Jersey.
One of the other distant relatives.
But they had, it was a cycle, and they would often meet in Alabama, sometime in other parts of the country. At this point, it was in New Jersey, yeah.
And that's where you discovered it?
That's where I discovered that I had a link to West Point. But I had already had my own connection to Mississippi before that point, But so I kind of discovered that, and then I kind of thought about it because a lot of people are always telling me, well, I know somebody up near West Point that look like you. So I always thought, you always assume that people just saying that, but you never know.
Now, where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Detroit. I went to a Catholic school, actually, called St. Teresa, predominantly. I went to a little school before that, elementary school called Holy Ghost. And both of those were Catholic schools. Actually, my mother was a Baptist. In my mother's family, which probably had the greatest influence on me, they were all Baptists.
Okay.
But my dad for a temporary period of time, was a orphan, I guess you would call him. In other words, he lived in a home, a Catholic home, where his father placed him while his father was scuffling with trying to get some permanent employment, His mother died when he was just about 6 years old. And then his father moved to Detroit in order to get involved. He was a brick mason.
Your father?
My grandfather. He laid bricks and cement. That was cement finishing and bricks. And actually was involved in building a lot of major institutions in Detroit, including the zoo and some other things. But in any event, my dad and his brother, he had a younger brother, stayed in this Catholic home, for a while. And because of that experience, he decided when we became, when he had a family and we came along, he had us all baptized into the Catholic Church, and we went to the Catholic Church. He put us in a Catholic school, and the school that we were in, the Holy Ghost school, was all black Catholic school as far as those who attended. Now, it was run by nuns who were Dominicans and who were not black. I don't think we had any Dominicans who were black that I can remember. But that was an important experience to me. And maybe I pause here just to say, that experience taught me that you didn't have to and go to school next to anybody in particular to get a good education, What I'm saying is that was a black school that really probably had more influence on my education in terms of discipline of education and the ability to think and to expand my mind than any other schools I went to since. Right. And really, I was not really that exceptional there. I mean, I hung in, but there were a lot of students who were doing a whole lot better than me, and they were black students, you know. And so I always knew from that experience that you could have schools that were black that were good, you know. Now that's not to say that you always got to go to a school that's black and good, and that's not to say that there's
Were nuns staffed at school?
Yeah, nuns staffed at
Nuns,
school.
black nuns or white nuns?
They were white nuns, but they had come from Africa, most of them.
Oh.
They had been missionaries, you know. They came back and they came from Africa and they taught.
Do you know what order they were?
Dominicans.
Dominicans?
They were called Dominicans.
Okay.
They were called Dominicans. Now, and they albeit had their racial problems too. I mean, there's no question about it. There was some racism in some of those nuns. Some of them were very good. Some of them weren't so good. But they worked very hard, and the parents worked very hard, you know, to make sure that their children got what they needed with the homework and everything. And it was an excellent educational environment. A lot of very, I guess you'd call prominent, for lack of a better word, blacks in Detroit, you know, came out of that school, you know, were in that school.
In that Roman Catholic school?
In that Roman Catholic school. Now, my dad, I don't know how my dad kept us in that school. He had 8 kids, and we lived in the projects.
Yeah, they paid.
You're supposed to pay.
Right.
But my dad was always very, what's the word I want to use? He worked things. You know,
Yeah.
He always was able. He was a good talker, and I think that he was extremely proud of his family. That was.
And all 8 of the children attended.
All 8 of the children attended. Not necessarily that Catholic school. We later moved to another Catholic school. But all 8 of us attended Catholic school, at least for part of our education. You know, the oldest ones of us went just about all the way through Catholic school.
All the way through. To high school too?
Yeah, high school too. And so that was a good experience for us, I think, because it helped give a certain disciplined education to us, and which you may not have been able to get the same in the public school system at that same time. Some students did. I don't mean to say that you can't, but I say that it probably would have been a little more difficult. So we got a good education.
Did you participate in extracurricular activities while you were at the parochial school? What's the name of the parochial school?
Well, the parochial, the first one, the one we went to for the first couple of years, which was like first, second, and third grade.
That was Holy Ghost.
Holy Ghost. But then the next one was St. Teresa.
Okay.
St. Teresa High School. And that's the one where I spent most of my time. And yes, what I loved was sports, and that's really what my target was on life, was sports. But I played football, basketball, and ran track. We did very well. In fact, because as we came into high school, we began to become the majority population at St. Teresa High School. Initially, it was predominantly white. And when we came in, with a predominantly black basketball team, a predominantly black football team, and all those things, and we had a tremendous impact on the Catholic school league, you know, scoring hundreds of points from time to time. So we did well. But basketball and football was a love. I got honors on the city level in terms of recognition.
All scholastic?
Scholastic, in high school I became a good student.
Yeah.
I was not a good student in middle school, and I was not a good student before that. And why that's true, I don't know. I'll leave it to the psychiatrist or psychologist. But in high school, I think that I was motivated. A nun told me when I was an 8th grader, she said that I wasn't going to be anything. I was nothing but a bum. Right?
The nun told you that.
She told me that. So I said, well, I got mad. I mean, and it was one of those situations. I see kids doing it now where my eyes start swelling, tears start coming, and I didn't want to cry, because I was mad.
Yeah, right. Sure.
But from that point on, I determined that I was going to do something, and so in 9th grade on, I became a great student, an excellent student. I wound up finishing, I think, somewhere in the top 10 in the class, in the high school by the time I graduated. And so I did well, and I also got elected as the first black president of the student council of the high school, and served on a couple other offices, I think, junior class president and things of that nature. So I became kind of, that was, if you want to call that politics, that became my political involvement. And also I became somewhat, we did a lot of things with debating the issues of the day, the Vietnam War, they didn't deal with any of the real strong issues that I've dealt with since then, but
Did you have any trouble with Roman Catholicism as you were growing up?
Growing up, yeah,
High
yeah,
school?
yeah, I think so. I mean, well, I had, yeah, and now in terms of the Roman.
Contradictions?
Yeah, there were, there were contradictions.
Sure.
The dogma became contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you had two things that were somewhat problematic. The more I understood it, the dogma became problematic.
Right.
And that probably didn't totally understand the contradictions to that until I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
Although I had a good friend of mine who stood up in class, I think when we were, I can't remember what grade we were in, but he stood up and said that God is dead. So that created a big debate, but
oh, yeah.
but that was not my view.
Yeah.
But later on, especially since I came from a family which was Baptist, and
mm-hmm.
so but I got into some concerns about the Catholic Church and the thing that they were the church and all that kind of thing.
Did you recognize the power of the hierarchy of the Catholic Church and
well, we had to
the local
school.
bishop and the cardinal and all of that?
As students in school, we did. We
You
had
did?
We had to. Yeah, I mean, they had to go through all that. Once I became independent thinking, no, I didn't. But
and what sort of separated? Were there some incidents in your life that began to separate you from the Roman Catholic beliefs?
I think so. Well, let me say directly, the way that the treatment of my family began to, there tended to be a definite, I would say, harmful kind of relationship, disdainful kind of treatment of my family. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't just my family, but what it was is that as that high school atmosphere at St. Teresa became predominantly black, the nuns at that point, as well as some of the other people who was in the administration, became concerned.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't want their school to be a quote-unquote black school.
Right.
The initial school I was in had no problem with that. We were kind of looked at as a mission school anyway. You know what I'm saying? But this St. Teresa was a big-time school in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And so when they started becoming predominantly black, they become predominantly concerned, and they began to treat the black students in a disrespectful way. Mm-hmm. So there were confrontations between my sisters. None seemed to have a real problem with young black girls, mm-hmm. and young black women. Right. And there was conflicts there, actually physical encounters where they were slapping my sisters at points and then being untruthful about it to my parents. My parents always stood up for the nuns initially with the children, but when they began to find out things, then it became a problem. And then I became informed about it.
Was there corporal punishment in that school as you were growing up?
Yeah. They would they had rulers and paddles and things of that nature, and I'm sure I got my share of it. I wasn't, I thought I was a pretty good child, but I had my devilish days too. And so, yeah, you caught that. And then there was the racism that impacted upon me, and I even understood a lot better later. You had my brother. I had an older brother. Okay, I have only one older brother because I'm second in line. Very handsome young man. He's a very handsome young man.
Your older brother.
Yeah, and I always looked up to him and all that kind of stuff. But the white girls would like him. All right, okay. And he's just a kid.
Right.
He doesn't really understand difference. So nuns would do things like, at one point they slapped him because he was dancing with a white girl on the floor. And in one point they brought him into school and put ribbons in his head. You know what I'm saying? Okay, in other words, to say that he's messing around with the girls. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This, as a kid, I don't know how it had to affect him, but it really affected me because I'm sitting there, watching this go on, and it was racial because you had some of the white boys were obviously dealing with girls too, right? And they didn't do that to them, and the black kids who were just dealing with each other, they didn't do that to them. You know what I'm saying? And so that kind of racism occurred. You had racism that occurred with.
Was the community mixed that you grew up in, or was it all turned all black, or how was that?
By the time we got to the neighborhood, may have been a few white people there, but for the most part they were black. Okay, there was like older white people still in the neighborhood, but we had to walk maybe a half a mile to get to school. And this is a city. Detroit's a big city, so you walk 6 blocks, a half a mile. The the whole neighborhood changes in a lot of respects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the school area itself still had a lot of whites in the immediate area around it. But where I was, okay, which was across a major intersection, okay, it was predominantly black. So I had kind of like two environments that I grew up in. One was where I lived, you know, and played, and then the other was where I went to school and played too.
Were there confrontations between the two communities
Yeah,
that you
well,
were aware of?
there were confrontations between blacks in surrounding communities and the whites that went to school there. Now, also the other thing that was happening as I went to school, even as whites were moving away, they would still be sending their kids back to the school. You know, they would because you know they didn't have Catholic schools in the outlying suburban areas at that time.
Right.
Later on they did, but at that time they didn't. So they would send them all the way back. And so you would have white kids getting in confrontation with black kids all the time. And we had our own confrontations in school from time to time, especially around the sports program.
No. But you had to compete against white teams.
Yeah, we competed against white teams. White kids didn't appreciate the fact that we were taking a lot of their positions, you know, and things of that nature.
Yeah, very much like Boston.
Yeah, the same
Very much.
the same thing.
Very much like
to his credit, we actually had a Jewish coach that I remember the most. He was the basketball coach, and I think he was a very good coach, but he appreciated the fact we were coming in there, and he wanted us to win games. Right. So he was putting us in a position to win, and literally you had a situation where many of the white players rose up and was ready to jump on a good friend of mine at one point. You know, in basketball, you always gonna have a little elbow and shoving and things of that nature, but they took it to a different level, I think, because of who he was. And we were ready to jump into a fray. And then the coach stepped in and really started slapping some of the young white fellows around, making them back up and get off of us, you know, and that kind of thing. So he wound up getting fired a year or so later.
Oh, the coach?
The coach did,
wow.
but I always, you know, appreciated him for the stand he took. And then later on.
Now place us in time. Chokwe, what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in '69 from high school. So the time that I was in high school, you're talking about '65 through '69. And you're talking about, you know, my education before that, you know, you're talking about the real early '60s, and then the late '50s.
Were you at all aware of what was going on in other parts of the country as it related to the beginnings of the movement, the student movement? Tell us a little about what hit you in Detroit.
The first thing that hit me about the other parts of the country was Emmett Till.
Emmett Till.
Emmett Till in the Jet magazine. My mother used to always take newspapers and magazines and sit down with us and discuss them and read them. Okay. Emmett Till was one that just stuck in my mind. I think I met him at 7, 8, 9 years old. And, you know, and I had this thing. I said, Emmett, I mean, you know, they killed this young brother. How could this happen? You know, this just devastating to me. And my thing was, these are bad people, and people that are something's got to happen to them. That I'm sure something will. My mother expanded it for me. She expanded my vision. She said, son, it's not just these people. She said, this is America. America has a problem. You know?
So she helped you understand. She helped you all understand.
She helped us understand. So Emmett stayed with me. And then my mother and my father were activists. They were not, I would not consider, they were not necessarily in the leadership of a lot of things, but they always participated to the best of their ability. They were in the
local politics?
Local politics, and entertained our house. Students from the South, and they had exchanges from the South, would come and stay at our house during the summer times often, you know, black students. And so you'd have that kind of exchange. So we learned some firsthand of what was happening down in the South. You know, I remember we used to stand on corners and help collect money for SNCC, you know.
Okay. What about King?
King spoke in Detroit. 1963, before he did the March on Washington. And there probably was as many people, if not more, in Detroit at the time he spoke, in front of what they call Cobo Hall, right?
Oh, I've been there.
Okay, Cobo Hall. And I was in the audience, you know, I had a chance to, my mama took me to that speech. And I was very impressed by King's speech.
How old were you?
Would have been at that time 10th grade.
10th grade.
So you're talking about 15 years old, probably. 15.
Now, do you don't remember the National Black conference in Detroit, the economic.
Yeah,
The economic.
James Foreman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember. I was a little older then, but
Now, that was at Cobo Hall.
that was at Cobo Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember that. I was not that involved in it, but people that I became more involved with later in life definitely were involved.
Okay. What about black church leadership? When did you sort of come across? Because I came across too, because I grew up in the Episcopal Church.
Okay, all right.
Under white preachers,
Right.
right? And then at a point in time, actually it was when I came back from the Korean War, that, I started going to nothing but black churches and listening to black preachers.
Right.
When did that happen for you?
Well,
'Cause I know it happened. for you at some
probably
point.
it happened, in two ways.
Okay.
In funerals, because see, every time anybody in my family would die, it would be in a black church, right?
Okay.
So I became associated with the speaking and the preaching in black churches, largely through that, okay? And then secondly, in terms of a more, intimate or political relationship with ministers, when I became involved in the movement, because they were always, and really, not only in Detroit, but maybe even before I became politically involved with black church leadership, in Detroit, it probably would have been in Kalamazoo, where I went to college,
Oh, you went to college
in Kalamazoo, and we actually formed the Black United Front.
Well, now, what college was that?
Kalamazoo College,
Right.
College. That was where I went after I graduated in '69. I went to Kalamazoo College, and that was and up in Kalamazoo, I wound up by the time I became a junior and a senior working in the Black student movement, and in the Black student movement, we formed the Black United Front, helped form the Black United Front. A number of the local political ministers were involved with that. And we became involved in that. I might also say that my family became involved in Detroit simultaneously as this time was on, as leaders in the Black Catholic, they call it Black Catholics in Action movement.
Okay.
And they did a lot of interrelating with.
So your parents stayed with the Catholic Church?
They did, and my mother, I guess technically they continued to be members of the Catholic Church all the way through. Yeah, they became members of the Catholic Church.
Did they, at a point in time, I know in Boston, I was in the Catholic Church, but at a point in time, the black Catholics went to their own black church
That's right.
with their black preacher.
Right.
That happened in Detroit?
That happened in Detroit, and in some instances you had a black preacher, and in some instances there were so few black Catholic priests though, that I think that there is still an example of that going on in Detroit right now. I mean, you have you got your black Catholic churches now, and really in line with the movement in the black church, they've adopted the black gospel. Okay?
Yes.
So in other words, when I say black gospel, music and things of that nature, service, which is more
Yeah, I
akin,
got a little granddaughter that goes to church.
like that, right?
In Detroit.
Right, in Detroit, okay,
Goes
yeah.
to Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn School, okay, yeah. Well, this thing, well, the church called Sacred Heart,
Second hand.
which actually, when I go back to Detroit, is the church I generally go to, but it's got a black gospel kind of orientation. Yeah, Now, they got another word for it, I can't think of it right now, but they got a black gospel orientation. And although the minister at that church, at one point they had a black minister there. At that time, he's moved on. They have a white minister there, but he's a real progressive white minister. And he gives the lay people a lot of leadership in the church, and the lay people are black. But but it's I think it's a fairly productive
Did
setting.
you work in any political campaigns? Because Detroit, all of a sudden, we woke up one day and Detroit was 70% black.
Right.
So you had political campaigns going on. Conyers went to Congress, I think, in 62 or 63, something like
I
that.
think the first campaign that I ever did any work for, and I was just a kid, like high school student probably, was Congress. I think I handed out leaflets and things for Congress.
Okay.
I supported Coleman Young when he first ran.
When he ran for mayor?
When he ran for mayor. We were very much, by the time that most of the real strong movement by blacks in the electoral arena in the Detroit area came about, I was probably working with the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa.
Okay.
And we didn't.
You don't remember Diggs?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember John?
Yeah, I remember Diggs, yeah. I was at the National Black Political Convention. You were too.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, right. And Diggs helped co-convene that. Yeah,
that's right.
But I knew him from Detroit. I mean, I don't know if Diggs would have knew of me. Okay,
Yeah, right.
but I don't know if he remembers the meetings me and him were in together. I was not a leader in those meetings. I was just a
You
participant.
participated, right?
But yeah, I know Diggs.
Okay.
I know him well, and his success.
He was well known down here.
Oh,
Both Diggs and Conyers.
Conyers, yeah,
Well
yeah,
known here in
yeah.
Mississippi.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
well, both of them, I knew well, and Conyers, me and Conyers are, I would consider as friends, good friends. But, yeah, and in fact, my cousin worked for Conyers for many years. But, so I did some political work, and when I became involved with the Republican of Africa, we supported the political movement, but not always out front, you know what I'm saying? Okay.
Now, the founding convention of RNA was in Detroit in '68.
Right, absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
I remember that.
Uh-huh.
And it was '68.
March 29th, 30th, and 31st. Okay.
All right, tell me, how did you become aware of that?
Okay, well, actually, I didn't become aware of that until after it was over, because I wasn't there at the start.
Okay.
I probably know more about the starting of it in history because of my study and talking to people than anybody. But I became involved with it almost a year and a half later.
Okay.
But I was in college. I was literally in Kalamazoo College when it started.
Okay.
I was going through my own transformation at that time because remember, King got killed 2 days, April 4th of 1968 is when King got killed.
Yeah.
The RNA started like 3 or 4 days before that. Okay,
Yeah.
It started March 29th,
Okay.
1968. King's death was my transition and introduction into full commitment into the Black freedom movement.
Okay.
That's what brought me in. Before that, I was primarily a ball player, influenced by the civil rights movement by my parents.
Okay.
After that, I was always
That brought you over.
That brought me over. After that, I was always a committed worker in the movement, and anything else, whether it was basketball or anything else, was always secondary. And so that's what brought me over into total commitment. King's death.
Now, did you know Geneva Collins and Miss Simon, those folks? Did you ever
Geneva
meet
Collins.
Then Miss Collins was from down in,
Oh, yes.
Miss Collins was from down in Louisiana.
Virginia Collins.
Virginia.
Yes. Yeah,
And his son.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Walter Collins.
Walter.
And then he had a lot of brothers.
But she been out there a long time.
Oh, yeah. I learned that later on, but I met her at meetings, at Republican Africa meetings.
Okay.
I met her at Republican Africa meetings, and then I began to know of her long history. And that was a contact that the people from Detroit had with her, for a while,
Okay.
But yeah, I knew, and I've learned a lot about her and her participation, her son's resistance to the Vietnam War and all that.
You remember that?
Yeah, very much so.
Walter.
Yeah, because at one point she did a speaking tour and we helped and sometimes did security for her. She spoke. Yeah.
Met her down here. I met her in Mississippi.
Yeah,
She came to Mississippi quite often.
Yeah, wonderful. I still visit her from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
Down in New Orleans, right. But yeah, so that was kind of like me evolving, the thing in Kalamazoo, which is interesting, which really wasn't in Detroit, my home, but in Kalamazoo, which had a black community too. It had a north side. You call it the north side.
Okay.
I got very much involved with that. I became involved in working with young children. I became involved in trying to get brothers and sisters jobs, in the community. I became involved in the overall protest movement, the black student rebellions, and I became actually chairperson of a thing called the Black Student Organization that we started in Kalamazoo.
On the campus?
On the campus.
Okay.
Western Michigan University, which is right next to us, and which is the major university.
Yeah.
Kalamazoo College is kind of like, they called it an egghead kind of little smaller college not far from there.
Yeah.
I was there because I had good grades, but also because I could play ball.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I got into egghead college. But I did but I spent a lot of time at Western. And Western is the first one to form the Black Action Movement. They actually started a student movement called the Black Action Movement. Since then, that name has been used many other times by other student organizations. I don't know if there's any community organizations that had started that before that, but the Black Action Movement was actually a student organization which was dedicated to getting more blacks in school.
Now, what year did you graduate Kalamazoo?
And hold on. Let me excuse me.
Okay.
I don't got
Go ahead.
years mixed up. 69 is when I graduated Kalamazoo.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back. Yeah, 65 is when I graduated
65.
I graduated from seminary.
Oh, I see, I wrote that wrong.
Okay, well, no, I told you wrong.
It was high school graduate.
High school was 65, yeah,
Okay.
65, yeah.
All right.
So I was in high school from 61 through 65.
Fine, you graduated from
Kalamazoo
Kalamazoo.
in 69,
All right, in 69.
1969, graduated.
All right, now I got it.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, that was my
Okay.
mistake, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so when I graduated in Kalamazoo, I came back to Detroit. I at that point became fully exposed to and joined the RNA. I learned of the RNA while I was still in college. What brought the RNA actually to my attention was the incident where the police attacked the RNA at the New Bethel Church.
Okay.
This was
New Bethel.
New Bethel.
Where?
This is in Detroit.
Okay.
This is the Aretha Franklin's father's
Oh, yeah.
church, right?
Uh-huh.
C.L. Franklin.
C.L. Franklin.
Yeah,
I
you
know
had
him.
a big convention there, and remember, not only was you literally had from babies to very old people. Queen Mother Moore was there.
Yeah,
Okay?
Queen Mother Moses?
Queen Mother Moore was there. Milton Henry was there, who was Mari's brother.
Oh, I knew Milton,
Yeah.
1948.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wait. But about then, was he in the service then, or was he? In
No,
school?
I met him in the campaign, in the Progressive Party campaign
Okay.
in
Okay.
1948.
Okay.
Henry
Okay.
Wallace.
Okay. Okay.
That's
all
how I
right.
met Milton.
I met Milton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Milton was very politically active.
Oh, he was very politically
active. Yeah, but they were all in the church. There was a wide variety of types of folks in the church because
In Mount Bethel.
in New Bethel,
In New Bethel.
and at the founding of the RNA, both. Because
Okay.
but the RNA founded a year before the New Bethel thing happened. The New Bethel, they both happened in March, and one happened. The founding was in '68. The attack at New Bethel was in '69. Both of them happened at the end of March, right? Okay. Okay. But the New Bethel thing is what brought the RNA to my attention because every time we was turning around, some group of blacks were being, you hear about blacks getting killed, police killing them, Klan killing them, everything from the kind of terror which occurred here in Alabama and Mississippi and other places to the kind of things that happened when the Panthers were being raided and shot up by the police. And then when we heard about this thing with the RNA, where they were attacked and they walked out alive, and one of the police officers who was trying to kill him, wound up, meeting his demise as he was in the process of doing that. And I happened to know the cop that got killed too in that incident. I happened to know him because he went to school with me at St. Teresa. And he was one of the people that were always fighting with the blacks in the community. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
And he was killed where?
He was killed in New Bethel.
At New Bethel.
What happened in New Bethel is that as Milton Henry emerged from the church, the police, couple of police, including him, felt that they had to pull their guns on him because he had guards. And at that time it was legal to have armed guards. So he had armed guards, but they were black, and so the police had a problem. So they pulled their guns and the guards and started a shootout with the guards. Basically, the guards. One of the officers was killed, one was wounded, and Milton was able to get away without being hurt. Of course, he came back, and then they shot up the church. They shot over 800 rounds into the church without any fire coming from the church, really. And then no one got killed in the church. Fortunately, 4 people got wounded, but nobody got killed. But that was that incident. And Michael Chopsky was the guy who actually got killed. And
He was a police officer?
He was a police officer, and he played football with me on the same team.
Is that right?
Yeah, he played football on the same team. And I'm not going to, Michael Chopsky didn't walk around horns, and didn't wear a Ku Klux Klan robe. But he always, like many other whites, had the problem with the limitations in their thinking, where they were afraid to death of blacks anyway. And they really, because of that fear led to a disdain. And
Did you know about Milton Henry's,
I didn't know.
Did you know about his political activism?
Only after New Bethel. Once New Bethel occurred, then I learned about
Then you
everything.
learned about
Because I actually became
Robert
more,
Williams and
yeah,
North
yeah,
Carolina.
I became more and more involved.
Okay.
I became first of all involved in terms of reading.
Right.
But then when I came home, remember this was '68.
This is 68.
And then in '69 I come home.
Okay.
And then I become fully involved in RNA. And then I began to not only learn about it, but work with the people. Me and Milton worked on some things together. And, you know, I worked very closely with Brother Imari.
Oh, now, how'd you meet Brother Amari?
A little storefront office on Dexter Avenue in Detroit. Okay.
Storefront Avenue.
Yeah, storefront office on Dexter Avenue in Detroit. I come up there to find out about the RNA.
Yeah.
And he was back. They had the little one part of the building had a little assembly hall, you know, real small one, and then right next to it was a little office. And so I was up there early for the meeting, and this guy was back there just writing. And I stuck my head in there. It was Imar, you know. So that was it. So that's how I met Imar, and he started lecturing to me,
Yeah.
teaching. And
Yes,
so I stayed for the meeting, and my brother was with me, my older brother.
Yeah.
And so they had the meeting, and it was this. But I was very impressed by Imar because I felt that he was explaining things. He wasn't really real emotional. You know, he was just breaking them down, boom, 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 and this is what you thought, this is what he thought, this is what he thought, this is what he believed. And so I was very impressed by that. Now, the speaker of the day was a brother named Papa Wells, Anwar Pasha from Mississippi. You know, he comes from Holly Springs, Mississippi. He had been living in Detroit for a number of years.
And you called him Brother what?
They call him Papa. Henry Wells.
Henry Wells.
And let me just give you, because I know he would want me to, he's deceased now. His Muslim name was Anwar, spelled A-N-W-A-R.
I got it.
Pasha, P-A-S-H-A.
I got it.
One of the original members of the Nation of Islam. I mean, for instance, he didn't learn from Elijah Muhammad. He learned with Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
They were taught by, I can't remember the brother who came here from another country. Farrar, yeah. Farrar. It was supposed to be Farrar. He had many names, but one of them was Wallace Farrar or something like that. But anyway, he learned with him. But anyway, Papa gave the speech. And it was, Papa Wells. It was just an exciting speech. Boom, everybody in the room joined up, except me. I didn't join up that day because my brother jumped up and joined. But I wanted to think about it a little more.
Master Farrar.
Yeah. Master Farrar. That was what they called it. But anyway, Papa. But I didn't join. But at that time, I joined a little later. But in any event, that was how I became acclimated. I met Milton later on. I found out about the million wonderful things that Milton had done. I'd already been listening and reading about Malcolm, of course, but I had heard the records, Malcolm, Message to the Grassroots, and Ballad of the Bullets. Okay. Now, little did I know until later that those records, at least in recorded form, the most popular recorded form, because I think Ballad of the Bullets was probably recorded in a couple of cities when he spoke it, but the most popularly circulated recorded form was actually done in Detroit by Milton and his brother. They had a brother named not Murray, but another brother who was a minister. I can't think of his name right now. But they recorded those. Okay. They're responsible for having circulated first as a record, literally an album, and then secondly it wound up becoming a tape, and now it's probably on CDs. But I talked for hours and hours with them about the history of the RNA and the history of a lot of other things that Milton had done. We found out that Milton actually had represented Imari at time. Found out that he went to Lincoln University with, represented Malcolm at times, I found out he went to Lincoln University with Kwame Nkrumah, who had been there, and had knocked heads with a lot of wonderful people all over the world. So great education. And let me just say this about my development. That was a very exciting period for me, and a very warm and nurturing period for me.
Right.
Not only the RNA experience, but being in the black student movement before that, coming out of Kalamazoo. That was a warm and nurturing period for, if I'm considered as the baby boom area, whatever you call it, a baby boomer, the young black men and women who went through that period, I think went through a period which it would take a whole lot of words to be able to appreciate. You could ride on a bus and engage in a political discussion. You could see black people who didn't know each other doing a special handshake and hugging each other.
Yeah.
You could stand at a bus stop, and talk to people. You could, and you could just, and you know, you didn't feel strange when you talked about your history of your people or about black being beautiful. You felt at home, you know what I'm saying? That was just a wonderful period. I kind of feel that we were fortunate. When I say fortunate, I'm talking about men and women about my age, for this reason. We didn't, you know, we were babies when Kill was killed, Emmett was killed.
Yeah, right.
We were babies when we were just young people in high school when Medgar Evers was killed, you know what I'm saying? So perhaps we didn't suffer all the blows to the head and everything everybody else did, but we became the beneficiaries, you know, like opportunities to go to law school and things of that nature, of a lot of that struggle. Right?
Well, you all were graduates of the Black Power movement.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what we were. That's what we were.
Yeah.
And we had a chance to see the love. You know, we had a chance to see the love in the movement. You know,
the Black Awareness.
Yeah, the Black Awareness
era.
Black Awareness era.
That was exciting era.
That was very exciting.
Yes,
I think that kind of opportunity gives us great responsibility. And that's why when people ask me, well, why do you so strong in court, Chokwe? Why do you stand up for people who may or may not stand up for you and all that kind of stuff? Well, I feel obligated, you know. I think that to he and she who much is given, much is expected in return. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm giving back. And I think that it's important that when we all get that kind of perspective, that we'll make a lot more progress. So that's a lot what I think about when I'm engaged. And I guess this affected me at a critical point in my life, and my parents had prepared me for it because they were giving to the community. You know, they were giving to people around us. They did it to some extent.
And did you listen to people like Dabbs? Dabbs was in Detroit. He and his wife.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look, man, this Detroit was an amazing place.
Yes, it really was.
I had a chance to go to all kinds of forums and meetings. In fact, two things I had a chance to do in Detroit, which I think people would appreciate, is one was on the cultural level, one's on the political level.
Right.
On the cultural level, of course, there's Motown.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who else has a chance to see their friends or people a little bit older than them growing up as superstars? You know, I mean, it's in the music industry. You know, I mean, just literally come off the same streets and just wind up being a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, I see young kids struggling so hard now to make it. Well, hell, it seems like, you know, a guy might be singing on the corner one day and tomorrow he'd be in Motown. But that was wonderful. But then the other part of it is political. Detroit was really a very powerful political place. We had a mixture of great contributions to the civil rights movement, you know, and from people like C.L. Franklin and others, you know, the NAACP was strong there. SCLC got a lot of support from there. SNCC got a lot of support from there. Then we had the Black Power phrase because we had, you see, in Detroit, the Nation of Islam actually started in Detroit. That's of course, years before that.
Exactly.
Then you had the Black Christian movement with Reverend Clay, you know. So you had the Black Christian Nationalists.
Yeah.
Then you had the RNAs founded there, okay? All these things are founded there. Then you had the workers, under the League of Revolutionary Workers, you know, which was founded there, you know, and right there for all those auto plants.
United Auto Workers.
Yeah. You had the UAW, and then that's another whole thing. You had the whole labor movement.
The whole labor movement.
Which really, to some extent, I think, as I look at it historically, becomes kind of a learning school for the civil rights activists. Like okay, it becomes a learning school, especially in the tactics and stuff.
Sure.
So Detroit was, you know, and then Detroit was an egalitarian kind of place. This is what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that you would live. The class problem has become more. What's the word I want to use? More of the class divide has become greater for everybody in the country over the last 10, 15 years.
Yes.
But in Detroit at the time that I was growing up, I mean, if there was a class problem amongst blacks, you didn't know about it. okay? Because, first of all, the factory worker probably was making more than the teacher and the lawyer and the hustler. Because if you were a black lawyer or a doctor, you were hustling, you know what I'm saying? You're probably teaching school at night and hustling cases in the daytime. Right.
So the middle class was right there.
Right, everything was together. Yeah. And I mean, like, and even to the extent, like I was telling you, we were going to a Catholic school, which is a pretty big thing, you know, I mean, you know, resource-wise. And we were living in the projects, okay? We were 8 kids living in the projects. Well, it wasn't fully 8 of us yet, but it was, you know, 5 or 6 of us living in the projects. And we didn't feel different. I didn't feel different. I mean, I don't know, you know, I mean, I'm sure there was some class problems there, sure. but I didn't feel different. I mean, I felt like everybody, all the other kids going to that school. It was only later on I found out I was living in an area of the city that wasn't particularly liked. And I'm sure that's part of my dad that helped create that attitude, because he just loved his family so much, and you know, and we're in the projects, but he builds a white fence, you know, little short fence. Anybody can walk over or step over, but a fence around the front yard. And I mean, you know, we're in the projects.
What about the ethnic differences? Because that was a melting pot.
Well, you had a lot of
ethnic backgrounds. Polish and Jewish.
You had a lot of
Italian
I become exposed most of that in the school context, because that's where you'd find the Polish kids, and you'd find the Italian kids, and the Jewish, the Jews wouldn't go to Catholic school, but you run into a lot of Jewish kids as you play sports.
Right.
Because actually, in basketball, the Jews were very, and I'm just talking about my contact with them, okay? In my first contact, the Jews were very prominent in the basketball world in the Detroit community. And so I actually went to a Jewish-run basketball school, and that's where I did the social contact with Jewish people. That's where it came. Later on, when we got involved in fighting for affirmative action at law schools and medical schools, and the conflict with the Jews came also there, you know what I'm saying? Because of their resistance to black affirmative action and their resistance to black power, you know what I'm saying? Which I felt was a real...
They were on the other side of the Baki decision, right?
Absolutely. Of course, the truth of the matter is there's always Jewish people working on the right side of it too. But sometimes the predominant Jewish leadership or community winds up on the wrong side of a lot of those issues. But
now, do you remember when Foreman went to Detroit with the black?
I remember the reparations. I remember the reparations came out of conference, and I remember, and Foreman had a pronounced effect, a very profound effect on the workers' unions too. Okay, because he
organized black workers.
Yeah, he organized black workers. He was involved in the League of Revolutionary Workers in Detroit, and that was an amazing organization. And I have to think I wasn't in it. Well, I actually was in it. Didn't know I was in it. I was working in the plant at one point, and they did have a walkout, and I walked out. Of course, I was trying to get off work, but I didn't understand it till years later. I was still in my early years I was just graduating.
Of activist.
Yeah, I was just graduating from high school when they walked out. But in terms of understanding it later on, tremendous organization. They organized not only the plants but the community. Yeah. Because they had the League of Revolutionary Workers, but the league itself was a composition of many different organizations. First of all, from each plant, they had a workers union. Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement, or Eldrum, Eldon Avenue Union Movement, and they had all those things. Then from the community, they had, I can't even think of the name of the community organization, they had several community groups that were inside of this. They took over, they published a remarkable paper, which really helped to keep what was way ahead of the regular papers in terms of international news, without question. I mean, not just in terms of its what they would call controversial or black power impact, but just in terms of knowing what's going on in the world, it was a tremendous paper. And then they later on took over the South End at Wayne State University, and the students ran that like it was the Black Panther paper for a number of years. So it was a tremendous, and there was a great lawyer that came out of that, Kenneth Cockrell.
I know Kenneth.
Can you remember Kenneth?
Yeah,
Kenny
Yeah.
Cockrell was a great lawyer.
He was a great lawyer.
Great lawyer, Kenny Cockrell, and then some other people like.
Now, who was the lawyer that went to, he had a son, he was a lawyer, his son became a lawyer, he went to the Congress of the United States.
Crockett.
Crockett, yes.
Crockett is actually a predecessor, because he's back in the days of the brothers and sisters who worked with the old Union movement, and who were kind of close to the Communist Party. Okay. But he's a milesetter. He's setting milestones, because now you talk about me being a controversial figure in court.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go back.
He can give it. I remember Crockett.
In fact, Crockett was the one who made most of the contempt law.
Yeah.
He made most of the law, because he's the first guy that gets thrown in jail for contempt when he's defending some alleged communists in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
He's defending them, and he says whatever. I don't remember what he says, but judge throws him in jail for 6 months. So, but he begins. That's Crockett. He's actually junior, but everybody thinks of him as senior because he's the one that you know about. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so but now then after that.
But didn't he have a son?
Yeah, his son was the third.
And he became an attorney too?
Yeah, and a judge. He later became a judge. Now, he's
Okay.
just resigned from being a judge, but he'd been a judge, he was a judge. He worked with me in the defender's office.
Oh, okay.
His son did. His son was one of my mentors in the defender's office.
Oh, okay.
And Crockett, I was in awe whenever I went to Crockett's courtroom.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was a great lawyer, great judge.
Yes.
Now, he wasn't the type of guy.
And he was up in age when he went to Congress.
He was. He had finished being a judge.
Yeah.
Then he went to Congress. He had resigned from being
I
a
remember
judge,
that.
went to Congress, and then became a very strong figure there.
Yes.
I had the great honor of not only knowing him from the courtroom, but actually speaking on forums with him after he became a member of the Congress. So he came down here and participated with the lawyers who helped in the early 60s.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about 61.
61, 62.
Yeah, he was there, and they were helped by Jess Brown.
Oh, yeah,
Brown
I
came
guess.
and helped them in the community, showed them around. And so this was the legacy we had. Now, the other thing, the connection between the RNA and Crockett is like this. Crockett becomes elected in the early 60s, or somewhere in the 60s, as the first black judge, or as one of two or three, okay? There's 2 or 3 judges on the bench. When the RNA incident happens in 68, when the New Bethel Church incident, we call it the New Bethel incident, when that happens, they come and arrest everybody in the church, 140-something people, old men, women, everything, throw them in jail, and then C.L. Franklin gets a hold of Crockett through another person. Crockett holds court. He goes down to jail and holds court. Cuts everybody loose. I said for about 3 people who they could show him that they had some reason to believe may have been involved in the shooting.
Yeah.
But he cuts everybody else loose. The white community goes crazy.
I guess so.
They go crazy. Oh my God, we're going to
how can you do this?
They're talking about impeaching Crockett.
Right.
The black community, which at this point is becoming bigger but has not flexed its political muscle, becomes enraged. So the black community forms a Black United Front in Detroit.
Oh boy.
And the RNA is, of course, helping with it, especially since Crockett came to the aid of the brothers and sisters. And not only does that movement become so strong that it not only elects Crockett, but Crockett starts running every year on the ticket saying, I need some other brothers and sisters to help me. So Detroit Recorder's Court, which at one point has 1 or 2 blacks, winds up having 30 of the 35 blacks who are, 30 to 35 judges are black. Okay. The city council becomes majority black. The mayor becomes black, because now this is over a period now. The attack on the New Bethel happened in '69. By '73, Detroit is a black mayor. Okay. So that was a tremendous, pregnant period as far as electoral politics is concerned in Detroit for black people. And Crockett is largely responsible for that, for his stand.
He was something else.
He helped us.
Yeah.
to set the fire off or light the fire around.
All right, now connect me with Mississippi.
Okay. I come down and I become part of the Republic of Africa. I love Detroit, okay, at the time, because Detroit is where I grew up with. That's all I know. My thinking, by the time I come back to Detroit from Kalamazoo, I have concluded from reading Marcus Garvey and other things that black people need a land base, okay? I decided that. I'm thinking it's part of Detroit, okay? I'm thinking it's, and then I understand Garvey's position on Africa. I totally support Africa. But I'm not so going back to Africa because I'm thinking if I go back to Africa, I'm leaving my whole people here. I'm leaving literally my relatives. And our family's a very, very close family. So I'm kind of in between on it. I get to and understand RNA. I hear about the RNA and they talk about the South. It makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. So my dream of land control by blacks is transferred to the issue of the South. Okay, that's where it becomes. Never is my dream a racist dream, okay? And the reason why I say that is because my mama would never, she wouldn't raise a child like that. I'm serious. She's.
I had the same kind of mom.
Yeah, she's in love with people.
Yeah.
Sure. But she doesn't mind criticizing people.
Yeah, right.
She'll criticize them in a minute. But she's in love with people.
Basically a humanitarian.
Yeah, humanitarian. And I'm a humanitarian. So, but my thing is question of process. To us, we were taught that King was the political Moses, right? Okay. And so I never throw that up, But at the same time, I started negotiating once King's killed, Malcolm's ideas and other ideas, and I began to conclude that it's a political process. It's not a question of socially who you like and who you don't like. You know what I'm saying? It's a question of politically how do you build power, right? And so understanding that, then I embrace the RNA's dream. And when you look at the RNA, and of course, were there people in the RNA who hated white people? Yeah. Are there people who you meet every day that hate white people? Yes. Are there people you meet at the barbershop who you hate white people? Yes. Yeah. But you don't base a movement on that. Not if you expect it to last, you know what I'm saying? And secondly, do the architects of it, people like Milton and Maury, hate white people? No. They're reasonable, intelligent people who are talking about a process where we bring their people to power so we can make that contribution to the world to put us in a position that King wants us to be in, where we can really be a full partner in the world, okay? And I begin to process this. I begin to understand that, look, integration the way that it's being built right now is not going to work. First of all, I understand even from chemistry that if you have one element, if you're mixing two different substances, one is chemically inferior to the other, then that means that they call it a compound. One's going to fall right to the bottom, one's going to float to the top. You see what I'm saying? That's not integration. Okay, that's an attempt at integration. Okay. A mixture is where you got chemicals of equal strength, and then they become indistinguishable from each other. Okay. So regardless, if that's the only thing I'd ever tolerate. I'm not going to drop to anybody's bottom, right? Okay, and then call that integration, Right. So what we have to do is have a power that's capable of standing up in the world,
So is it fair to say that black nationalism to you became a necessary tactic to be used toward the evolution of black people to at least a status to at least the acquisition of some degree of political power?
Absolutely.
With which to negotiate?
Absolutely. I think that to me, it became a necessary element in our growth. See, like when you say black power,
yes,
the question is, what is that? And to me, what black power became is black nationalism. What to me, black power became, but progressive black nationalism. And I would dare say revolutionary black nationalism, not black nationalism like I hate white folks black nationalism because they, different color than me. Yeah. Not black nationalism like we don't want to deal with nobody but black people. Black nationalism like you really are trying to build a nation, you're trying to build a political entity, a state power, right? Okay. Yeah. Which, by the way, flashback right quick, Mississippi would have been in great position for. Sure. Back in the 1800s and the 1900s when we had like 90% of the population, had not we been betrayed, okay?
Right.
Okay, by people who were supposed to be friendly to us in the north, but now flashback to where we are.
Now, what was your internationalist perspective as it related to black acquisition of land and property?
Okay, I felt that, like this, I felt number one is here again, to become strong in the world, we had to support the growth and liberation of Africa. So I was a Pan-Africanist. I was a Pan-Africanist. I feel we had to.
Well, that talks about colored people all over the world.
Right, all over the world, yeah. We had to.
Pan-African
Absolutely. We had to.
Coming together with black people.
Absolutely. And I thought Africa was central to that. I felt that if we don't do anything in Africa, we'll never, ultimately, we
So you agreed with Du Bois's philosophy on Pan-African.
Absolutely. And then I'm an internationalist in this respect, because I think I support all oppressed people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I ate for the Irish, okay?
Right.
I ate for the Palestinians, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any time that you show me a group of oppressed people, I start seeing similarities with us, you know what I'm saying? And not only just see it, but have met with people around it, you know, been involved in international conferences and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate the struggle. I depart with some internationalists here. I don't think that you designate some people, like somebody wanted to designate Stalin at one point, or somebody wanted to designate Lenin at one point, or even Mao at one point as the leader of the world revolution, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that any other leader in another country can be the leader of anybody's movement here, you know, or anybody here can be the leader of anybody else's movement elsewhere, you know. So I break with that kind of thinking. But as far as understanding the sisterhood and brotherhood and the solidarity, between struggles, I'm absolutely down with it. And so when King makes the statement, and I think he understood his statement more and more as he lived.
He did.
I think he understood it less.
We discussed black power, right?
When he makes when he makes the statement, when he makes the statement, you know, that oppression, or what did he say, you know, justice, well, what did he say, oppression anywhere is a danger to people everywhere, or that kind of statement. I can't remember I'm paraphrasing it. Then that's what I believe. You know, I think that if anybody's being oppressed, people in Ireland are being oppressed. That's a problem for me. You know, ultimately. You know, so that's why you know, great empathy with that. So internationally, I think that you should support progressive movements, learn about the world, and things like that. I don't think you interfere. I don't think that you can become, like I said, the leader of somebody else's movement. I don't think that you can send troops over someplace and seize somebody else's country and call yourself leading them to freedom, you know. But I do believe that if you see a legitimate resistance movement, a freedom movement, let's take Iraq, for example. If there was a freedom movement fighting against Saddam Hussein, okay, I think you should meet with them, you should discuss with them, and even maybe give them material and solidarity, some material support and solidarity to them, you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I don't think you run in to take people's country over, and the people over there don't believe in it either.
Absolutely.
You know, the United States is trying to interpret their election as an endorsement of what they're doing. Their election is an endorsement of get the hell out of here. You know, that's what their election was, you know. But anyway, you know, flashing back. So that's.
I don't believe in imposing
on
the group of people.
Right.
Our brand of democracy.
Right. Absolutely.
Which has so many flaws in it.
Right. Absolutely. But that's how I am. I'm a nationalist, but a revolutionary, progressive nationalist, not a what we call a reactionary nationalist. And then I'm a Pan-Africanist, and then I guess you would call me an internationalist in that I believe in freedom all over the world.
Right.
I don't think I don't think I would feel very secure any place unless every place was free, you know. And so I believe in that. And I think that's a constant struggle, because see, we will achieve clearly what we are talking about, the freedom as we understand it, but our children will see greater challenges, you know what I'm saying? And they will fight on, you know. I mean, I don't know whether it'll be, hopefully at some point it won't be against armies, you know what I'm saying? But it may very well be against things in the universe, you know, natural disasters, you know, I mean, you know, there's always a challenge in the world, diseases, you know, whatever, there's always a challenge, and so you got to continue to struggle. So
the racism has international, an international dimension.
Absolutely.
That contributes to the oppression of people throughout the world.
No question. Racism racism is central to that oppression. I think racism and capitalism have mixed in such a way that they become twin evils, which create a very a tremendous dilemma for everybody.
Okay, let's get back to your experience in Mississippi now.
Okay. What happened is that after becoming involved in RNA, I come down in the 70s, early 70s, 71 to be exact.
1971.
Yeah, March of 71.
Was that after Lewis Street incident?
Yeah, before.
Before Lewis Street?
Before Lewis Street.
Okay.
I come in March of 71.
March.
Actually, some RNA people who preceded me had been here shortly after the Jackson State students were killed in 1970.
All right.
And Virginia Collins, who you speak of, actually introduced us to people in the community, right? Okay. Because she knew a lot of Mississippi people already. Okay. She's down in New Orleans, you know.
Right.
Okay. But I come down in 1970.
My friend from Boston, Brother, what was his name?
Elijah.
Elijah.
Oh, yeah, Elijah comes. Oh, yeah, Elijah comes.
He was my friend.
Oh, yeah, right. Good
We were
brother.
very close for a long number of years.
Right, he talked about you all the time.
Yeah.
I know Elijah, yeah. But in 1971, March of 1971, here again at the end
He
of
died.
Yeah, he died in the...
Nobody ever told me.
He really? Okay.
Nobody
No.
ever
Oh,
told me.
wow.
No.
He died in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know he died somewhere in the 90s,
Oh, yeah,
but my friends in Boston.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry.
When he passed.
Yeah, I wish I
Yeah.
would have thought of it, but
Yes,
I really didn't. But
we really had a very close relationship.
Yeah, we
In the 80s, from, I guess, dating back to the early
Yeah, because
80s.
he did a lot of community work.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
In Boston, he
Yeah.
did a lot of community work.
Yeah.
And then he came to Mississippi.
Very dedicated, very dear brother.
Yeah.
Well, I came to Mississippi he came down here too, but it was March of 71. And we had my first entry into Mississippi was for Land Celebration Day, okay?
Okay.
Land Celebration Day was when the RNA had purchased some land out in Bolton and Edwards, and we were here to celebrate it. That was the first time I came. It's just interesting, I drove down, and I'm
From
driving.
Detroit?
Yeah, from Detroit, along with probably a couple other people. But as I'm driving down the highway, 55, I guess it was 55, it had to be 55 at the time. I'm in Mississippi, and all of a sudden all these ghosts come back, Emmett Till, and I'm thinking, and then we're running low on gas, right? And so I'm thinking, in Michigan, you're used to, if you drive off the road and you're not to the city yet, you're going to see, you don't feel comfortable. You're nothing but white folks.
Right.
So I'm driving off this road, and now I'm thinking about the Klan and everything else, and so I'm thinking, I ain't no telling what's going to happen. But I get there, and I'm comfortably reassured when I see all these black folks, because you're in Mississippi, so you're in a rural area, so there's nothing but black people, at least in the area that we were in at the time. And so, but so after that, the first time I went off the road to get gas, I started feeling like a little more at home. Anyway, we come down here, but we find out when we get here that the city of Jackson, the county, and the attorney general of the state have gone wild.
Right.
Their whole thing is, to put it in the phrase that the Klan put it, these niggas ain't gonna have no land celebration here. Okay, that was basically what the Klan put it. And that was pretty much what F. Summers, the attorney general, the mayor, who I think was Russell Davis at the time, and all these other jokers were saying. So, of course, we young kids, I'm early 20s, I come in here and I'm thinking, what's going on? And Imari comes in. Well, Imari, first of all, was here, but he didn't know that we were going to get that kind of reaction. Nobody realized we were going to get that kind of reaction. And so what he says is, we come in peace, but we come prepared. And so people come in, and literally while he's talking to the press, the Los Angeles bus, what a California bus, because most of those folks are from the Bay Area, arrives. And we got all of these brothers and sisters just, unload off the bus, and they're all in the uniforms, at that time it was denim, we wore denim, right? I know you remember Elijah in his denim uniform.
Yes,
okay.
sir, I do.
So he came in, and so the press, just sensationalizes that. Very organized, very disciplined brothers and sisters. And so, that was our position. Now look, we're here to have a celebration. We got every right to have it. We've been talking to people about freedom all these years, and so what are we going to do? Now, of course, we, like anyone else, didn't want anything to happen. We didn't want to get hurt, or didn't want nobody else to get hurt. But we've been talking all this freedom talk, and and all this rights that we have, and the fact that we believe in self-defense, we're not going to come down here and cut and run, you know what I'm saying? You know, and so we said we're going to go through with it. So that was probably one of the heavier commitments that most of the people in our group had made up to that point in time, to go through with this land celebration, you know. And so we literally were confronted with, you know, first of all, little arrests being made on the way down here of various different people. Not, you know, most of us got in untouched, but they were arresting, you know, little folks here and there, so we'd get reports that this person had been arrested, this person had been arrested, for nothing. They claimed they were speeding, or they claimed a whole lot of
harassment.
Right. But then in any event, we get down here, and then Marty says, well, we have a little discussion. He talks to people, and he says, well, we're going to go ahead. And we said, yeah, we said, we're for that. So we go ahead with the land celebration. We're actually gathering in Jackson. We're gathering right out there next to Jackson State University on Lynch Street, okay, where we used to be, it's a house there which used to be owned by one of the doctors, I think Dr. Miller.
Dr. Miller.
But
It
actually,
was Dr. Miller.
Yeah, but at this time, this house has been converted into an office for the Black United Front of Jackson, which I think is a student group, which Rudy Shields, I believe, worked with from up in Yazoo. But so they let us use the building, and so we use it, and so we gather there, but we're headed out to the Bolton Edwards area, of course. We first mount up and go to this mission site, and Mount Beulah. They call it Mount Beulah. Mount Beulah. Okay, we go to
Mount Beulah.
Right, that's right. I remember that. The Delta Ministry, right? Right. So we first go to Mount Beulah, and we set up camp there, and we, you know, have a little cabin there, you know, where we stand, and we were having our meetings, and you know, the FBI is running up through, coming into the land without any permission from anybody, taking people's license plates and taking pictures and all this kind of stuff, and so, you know, and Marty actually puts me on his head of security. Well, actually, Elijah put me as head of security because he was the minister of defense. And so Elijah had this way of cultivating young people. And so he puts me head of defense. And so after he puts me head of defense, he comes around and looks at me and says, why are these FBI agents coming up here taking pictures? You're head of defense. Hold on, can I hold on for just a second here? Let me get this, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hold on. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. I'm at the museum, the Smith Robinson Museum, doing an interview. Yeah, are you going to go with me? No, I don't think so, unless it's Ali. Ali may be going, but I don't think that your cousin's going. You know, because he hadn't returned my call. Yeah. Okay, well I'll call you back as soon as I know. Okay. I know. Yeah. Okay. So, so he says, I don't want these FBI agents up in here taking these pictures and all this. So I said, okay. So we get our little group together and we decide, well, how are we going to stop this from happening? So we do stop. What we do is block off the road. You know, we talk to the people in Mount Beulah first. You know, there's a brother there who I don't know if he's the maintenance, the custodian, what he is, but he's there all the time. Right? Okay. So we asked him. We said, do we have a?
That was Jake.
Yeah, I said, do we have a right to have the use of the land? You know, and is it ours? You know, he said, yeah, whatever y'all want to do, you go ahead and do it. So we set up the cars, and so they can't get through. We put the cars in front, and then we get a guy from big megaphone.
Vernon Jacobs.
Yeah, put a megaphone, and so the FBI tries to come in again, and the brother says on the megaphone, it says, get out of your cars and identify yourself. And so they do. They get out of their cars and identify themselves. They don't know what's going on. So let's put it this way, we secured the spot. Yeah. And we did it without violence, you know. Okay, we secured the spot, we did it without violence. They couldn't come up in it anymore. So they were disappointed with that, I think, first of all, because they couldn't come up and take pictures and interfere with people. We have a good meeting there for 2 days, whatever. A couple of false alarms where it appeared that, and we later on found out the false alarms were caused by a couple of guys who were informants, who they had actually put in our midst, who had just started some confusion by shooting into the woods, okay, when there was nothing going on, to try to alarm us and have us to go off. But we took those people off post, and we just had and the meeting ended there. But now the next time, next day, Sunday, we were to go on to the land site, you know. The boat, yeah. So what we did is we find out, we're getting ready to leave, we find out that the Mississippi Highway Patrol at this point has become involved.
Oh, yeah.
And they've set up roadblocks, and so we send people out, people who live in Mississippi. One of them was Addie Green. Okay?
Oh, yeah, Addie.
They're looking around to see if we can find our way around these roadblocks, So we plan to go one way to avoid it, and then we find out they've set something up that way. So as it finally turned out, we said, well, look, we're gonna, me and Elijah were in charge, and so what we said, look, we're just gonna go peacefully. We're gonna be prepared to defend ourselves. If the cops stop us for something which is legitimate license check or something like that, we're gonna submit to it, okay? We're not submitting anything else. And so we just took off. And so we took off, we had about 300 people, 350 people, in cars, buses.
You had 350 people?
Yeah, we had about 350 people. There were cars, buses, and different things, We're going toward the site, and as we're moving, put our lights on. Some of the people, it's funny, some of the people I think thought we were a funeral procession, you know what I'm saying, because we had the lights on. We just had the lights on so we could follow each other. So everybody, a lot of black folks pulling over and putting their hats on their hearts and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we pull over, we go along, and we're approaching this roadblock, which has been set up by
Highway Patrol.
Highway Patrol, and your boy is in the head of it, Lloyd Jones.
Oh.
Okay, at this time, Lloyd Jones is there. The FBI gets in our way, and I think accidentally, okay, of the road, of the caravan. Okay, they're trying to cut across the streets or whatever. And they get in our way. I guess we're on old 80 at this time. I think we're on old 80. We're not on 20. We're definitely not on 20.
Not on 20.
But because it's a place where you can pull, you can turn around. You have
I was
eyes.
80.
I was 80, so we're on 80. So they get in our way. We stop the caravan. I get out and talk to them, and they are there in the way. And I said, and they say to me, well, I'm sorry. They seem to be very nervous. We didn't mean to get in your way. We didn't mean to get in the way. And so at that point in time, I get real brave. I said, well, get the hell out of the way then. I said, get the hell out of the way then. I said, move your car. So they moved their car. And I think, to some extent, Jones and them, who are a little bit at a distance, see that happen, okay? And and I think they start questioning, if the FBI ain't gonna stop me, do we need to be standing in the way? So we keep coming, and we get to the roadblock, and they open up, they open up. It almost, and it was a heavy moment. We had instructed everybody what the dangers were, what were going on, and what needed to be done in case of something happened. And
they opened the roadblock.
They opened the roadblock, and it was almost to us as heavy as the Red Sea opening. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm sure as the Hebrewites were moving out of Egypt. And so we went through there, got on the land, and then of course the Klan had put up signs, we giving niggas 6-foot holes here and all that kind of stuff. So we went on the land, had our celebration without incident, and people were just elated because there had been no violence, nobody had gotten hurt, and we stood up for what we believed in, and we went on that land and that's where the terminology "free the land" came from. Free the land. That's where the "free the land" came from. And we had a naming ceremony, a marriage out there, in addition to conducting some of the business that we met on about reparations and other things. I don't remember what it all was about, but that's what actually happened. And we had people who were on duty, who were prepared to defend us, and things of that nature. I was one of those people, unabashedly. That's what I believed in, and I think that we had a right to defend ourselves. And I think that the prospect that we would defend ourselves, at that point at least, made them back down. Now, that was my...
Now, Amari was with you at that point.
Oh, yeah, he was with us. He was right in the caravan. He was at a
Now,
place.
did the preacher take part in that celebration?
There were preachers who took part.
The preacher that was supposed to send you the land.
No.
He wasn't
That was
I can't call his name. I used to know it, but
Let me say this. I'm not sure, but I don't think he did. That was Lofton Mason. Lofton Mason, yeah. He did do this. He did stand up to the FBI, at least to that point, because they were trying to get him to say, withdraw the contract, don't sell him the land, don't do this. And he continued to go through it. And we later on found out, by looking at COINTELPRO papers, that they had visited him no less than 10 times.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Trying to induce him to withdraw the offer on the land, but he didn't. He didn't up to that point.
He stood firm.
He stood firm to that point. Later on, I think the situation changed. In fact, someone tells me, and I didn't have any personal experience with this, that it became maybe a little more lucrative for him to do something, and also the promise of some kind of political power. They were going to try to get people to support him to run for some kind of office.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah. So later on, he begins to withdraw. Now, I'm back and forth to Mississippi after that. Okay. I didn't stay.
Now, how'd you get in our office on Gallatin Street?
Okay, what happened is that
Charlie helped you get in.
Jump forward, right, jump forward. What happened is that, see, I'm back and forth, still kind of halfway trying to finish law school.
Okay. Were you in all that?
Yeah, I was in 69 I enrolled, and by that time, I'm really kind of only halfway. Let me get this again, right?
Okay. I didn't remember you was in law.
Yeah, hello. Doing good. How you doing? She said it's Dr. Okay, real good. Okay, that's good. Okay, and I'll be back in touch with you. Okay. All right, bye. Yeah. So what happens is that I get. I'm back and forth, but I'm really more and more withdrawing from law school at this point. Okay, because I'm really involved with the RNA. And I'm not doing much in law school, and so really I withdraw, and before that semester's out, I really withdraw. Mm-hmm. Okay, but then, I'm still back and forth because I'm the leader of the RNA in Detroit at this point.
Where were you attending law school?
Wayne State.
Wayne State.
University Law School. Yeah, Wayne State.
Okay.
Okay, I'm in Detroit, and I'm the consul. I'm the head RNA official in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that. I'm back and forth down here a lot for meetings, and one of the meetings we come down to is at Reverend Cameron's church,
John
Cameron's church, the Mount Calvary, Greater Mount Calvary Baptist Church. It's on Litt Street at that time.
Yeah, right.
And so what happens is that they tried to say that we stole the farmer's land and some crazy stuff, so we have a people's court. Murray and them show them the receipts and everything, and everybody that was there, and that place was flooded. I mean, it was really packed, at that time. In fact, we couldn't get everybody in the building. They vote that not only is Mason and the FBI cheating RNA, but they're cheating black people. So I go back to Detroit after we have that meeting. I find out on August 18th, 1971, somebody calls me in the middle of early morning, pre-dawn hours, and says they're shooting up the house, right? So I literally hear from where this person is on the phone, gunshots, going off, and that's what occurred. We know that what happens then is that Skinner is killed, unfortunately, but in really trying to kill some other people. That's how he gets killed. He's trying to kill people in the house, and specifically trying to kill Imari, although they don't know Imari is not in the house. Okay? Right. The other thing is we find out is that they have over a period of time, and this is jumping forward because we didn't find this out until like late 70s, early 80s when we got the COINTELPRO papers, is that they actually put a guy down there in the house in order to justify the service of a warrant. And by the time that they get there, this guy's no longer there. And they just continue with it because they want the pretext of thinking that they're serving a warrant. But we believe they knew before they got there that he had left. But in any event, so the whole RNA 11 cases begin. Okay, go into the court, the organizing support. Actually, I come down here to live in late 71, early 72. Because we are organizing support. We get into the Gallatin Street office with the great graces of your organization, the Delta Ministry, because it's really, literally the only place we can be without being arrested, maybe killed. We, everybody knows about the story of the RNA-11, but when people don't know, they might have arrested 20 other people,
Right.
On little fictitious things over charges over a period of time, right after the RNA-11 incident occurred. They also were messing with people who had jobs here and things, getting them put off their jobs and all that kind of stuff. So we get into the Gallatin Street, and really that's what allows us to continue our work. Before that, it was really too dangerous, to even do it. But we get into Gallatin Street office, and here we are in the midst of the civil rights ministry with a lot of people up in there who are doing different things, because you guys had other folks up there too. I can't remember who all was there. Jesse Morris was there,
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse Morris was there. So we get in there and we
Federation of Southern Co-ops.
So we able to, and then we also, that was a good thing for us, not only for the security purposes, but in terms of, we for the first time, at least me, I can't speak for Amari because at this point he's in jail, but get to really learn about the earlier stages of the civil rights movement. Not just from reading from a distance or talking to somebody who's traveling, but firsthand. Talking to people who were there. Because there were certain people there who were part of it, but there were other people who come through there all the time. Who were the heart of it. What I'm saying? Who wasn't? Were the movement. So we began to learn a lot, and we began to develop a degree. So you have a certain arrogance when you think you're a revolutionary.
Oh, I know.
You have a certain arrogance.
Oh, yeah.
So we begin to learn a bit of humility, a lot of humility, and I think that was that's probably one of the greatest experiences of my life, because I constantly, especially, you have an arrogance coming from the north too. You have an arrogance because
You think you know it all.
you think you know it all, and then you're going out
think
and
you know
help those poor people who've been victims. You're going out and help them.
Very paternalistic.
Very paternalistic, yeah. And so what happens is that we begin to understand that we weren't the first in many respects of just about anything, you know what I'm saying? And you begin to understand your relationships to the other parts of the movement.
Right.
I gained a great respect for Bob Moses because of some SNCC people who came through and were doing some projects where they were working with the Federation, really, and they began to talk about some of the work they had done and his way of leadership, the unassuming kind of low-profile leadership that he was always engaged in. I didn't always agree with his philosophy, but I certainly admired the fact that he could make people, bring people into something without being a dogmatic kind of individual, and I thought that was a tremendous skill. But in any event, so we learned a lot, and I learned a lot. That was a large part of my development in that period. I'd get arrested every now and then anyway, but but to the point. But at least I had an office I could come back to and give a press conference without getting shot up. You know what I'm saying? I remember when we were doing that phase. One of the things we were doing during that phase, we were helping the RNA-11 in their cases, and we billed for a major demonstration which occurred in Jackson in March of '73, which we called the Prisoner of War Solidarity Day. Black people in Mississippi just broke it down and called it Black Solidarity Day. That's all they called it. But in any event, we gave it in '73, and but building to that, we were inviting a lot of people in. Dick Gregory came, Mahmoud Baraka, Leroy Jones came, Ben Chavis came. We thought at one point Angela Davis was going to come, and some SCLC representatives were here, NAAC people here participated, and a lot of different people participated. But one of the things that we were wondering about was is that as we were building for this, I would get stopped invariably. I got stopped once right down on Lynch Street in front of the Masonic Temple, or close to the Masonic Temple, might not be directly in front. And they surrounded me with all these cars, just me, and it was a young lady in the car with me who was helping us do it, organizing, surrounded us, and was training shotguns, put a shotgun in my stomach, and the guy asked me if I was second in charge of the black ass niggas. That's one thing I remember. And he's trembling, kind of halfway trembling, a white boy, because at this point they're afraid of us in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay. Let me get this right quick too.
Go ahead then, while I'm doing it.
Make sure that it's not important. Hey Derek, did you call me, brother? Okay, anybody there call? Who's there? Imhotep, and who else? Okay, let me talk to Imhotep right quick. Okay. Go ahead and put it down, and then give it to me, okay? Yeah, go ahead and take that, okay? Right, you need to write it up and put it on my desk, okay? All right, okay then, well, tell him, see if Imhotep needs me. If he needs me, tell him I'll call him back in about 15 minutes, okay? And if anybody else needs me, tell them the same thing. What time is it now?
4.
Okay, so I'll call you back and you can tell me who needs me, okay? But, yeah. So, okay, so I tell, so what happens is that, the way it happens, they, like I said, they surround us, and they, and he sticks a gun in me.
Was this local police?
Local police.
Jackson police.
Jackson police, and they just surround us, about five or six cars, and then they sticks a gun in me, in my stomach, and ask me, am I second in charge? And I don't say anything. They say, are you second in charge? I say, second in charge of what?
This was on Lynch Street?
Yeah, on Lynch Street. He said, of the black ass niggas. That's what he said, of the black ass niggas. So I just looked at him, and so fortunately, we withdrew from that position. And but a couple other times, my wife had come down and started living with me from Detroit. This is my first wife. And she, they surrounded me another time, and they were asking if Angela Davis was coming and all this kind of stuff. Was trying to take her purse. She refused to give it to him. So they took her down to the police station, and fortunately there was a captain or somebody down there had enough sense to say, let her go. John Britton would always help us back in those days,
Yeah, well, JB.
Yeah, JB was here. It seemed like there was another lawyer that was really kind of active.
Lou Myers?
Yeah, Lou came a little bit after that, but yeah, he was involved when he came, and then he was in Oxford most of the time.
He was in Oxford.
But he represented us when we did the demonstration actually in Jackson, in March of '73.
Well, did Constance stay involved with you?
No, not much. She did represent RN11. She represented Tamu. Yeah, they call her Ann Lockhart, but Tamu, Sister Tamu. She represented Tamu, and of course Fred represented.
And then Furnace too.
Furnace represented.
Furnace Alexander.
Yeah, who did Furnace represent? Furnace represented, I think, Karim or Addis Ababa or somebody.
Okay.
He represented one of the young brothers. And that's why I first met my first lawyers in Mississippi were John Britton. John Britton was not in the federal crowd, but he represented some of the people in the state proceedings, like young Karim. Karim was the 13-year-old that was in the house.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember him. So a lot of those lawyers became very active at that time with the case. We had a lot of support. My job became actually after the RNA 11 incident is organizing support for the brothers and sisters, and we got a lot of support from the doctors in there. Dr. Miller was really leading the pack, and they formed a thing called Black Mississippians for Justice, and Shirley was in it. Anderson.
Aaron Shirley?
Yeah, Aaron Shirley. I think Anderson was in it. I'm pretty sure he would have been because I know him and Shirley were always pretty close, and they were fighting. A lot of the doctors who had been around to fight for the Medical Center.
Dr. Anderson?
Yeah, Dr. Anderson. They were fighting for the Hines County, what is it called?
Comprehensive Health Center.
Health Center, right.
Mm.
And Imari had really helped them, because what he had done is, help, call people, get people to come out, literally people to support the fight that they were having at that time. They were having a lot of hearings, and they were having to fight around whether the money for those centers would go directly to them or go through the state.
Right.
They were trying to get the money to go to them because they didn't trust the state and what the state would do with the money. So it was supportive on that level. But in any event, so I did a lot of that organizing. I learned, and I met a lot of people then. I stayed down here and prepared for the trial until the federal trial occurred in September down in Biloxi, September of '73. That's when that federal trial occurred, September '73. I actually testified at the trial. I saw one of the worst exhibitions of injustice I've ever seen in a courtroom. It was a predetermined fate for all the defendants.
Oh, yeah.
Not only was
foregone conclusion.
And when you read, I just recall recently here Ben Allen talking about he's read the transcript. Ben Allen ain't read the transcript. First of all, he said it was a '76 transcript. The trial occurred in '73. So if you read the '76 transcript, you read the wrong trial. But secondly, what he's talking about, probably he has the opinion of the circuit, of the federal Fifth Circuit, which is a bunch of baboons as far as legal paralysis is concerned, and their opinion is ridiculous. But the jury not only convicted them of a conspiracy, which was unlikely at best, and it was not a conspiracy, by the way, to kill, what's his name, Skinner.
Of course not.
Because first of all, you can't even have that case in a federal setting. But it was a conspiracy allegedly to assault federal officers, and to possess a weapon. But to show you how not only was it ridiculous that people would conspire to bring people outside their house to shoot and have a shootout, but more apparent with the jury bias was on the charge of possession of an automatic weapon. The weapon that they claimed was automatic had been in the possession of the police and or their experts from the day that the RNA house was raided. Right? They claimed, since it was clear and that they showed, they were able to show that it was a legally purchased weapon, and these weapons were legally purchased in different parts of the country all the time, they claimed that a weapon could be converted into an automatic weapon by searing down the trigger mechanism. So what Ray Willis did, who was the attorney for Brother Imari, he was an attorney from Detroit, he told, and him and Fred Banks said, well, take it out on the beach and shoot it then, show us it's automatic, you know what I'm saying? So the expert takes the gun out on the beach, and the judge says, yeah, we're going to let him do that, because I'm sure the judge figured you had the weapon for 2 years, it wasn't automatic, it ought to be now, you know what I'm saying? He get out on the beach, shoot the weapon 15, 20 times, the thing does not fire automatically. You know, and I see this, I'm there. And the jury sees this, right? They come back and convict them of automatic weapon anyway, so it didn't make any difference. It was all white jury except for one 78-year-old white black guy. And so that was that. After that occurred, I decided at that point, Owen, that I needed to go back to law school. I need to finish law school because I really liked the work that Fred and them did, but I felt that nobody had the conviction and the commitment to this movement that I had, you know what I'm saying, and out of the legal community, right? Okay. So, and certainly no young person. So I felt that I would need to go back to law school. So I left here going back to law school. I had already begun to think about it, about re-entering law school, picking back up, because...
Now, is Imari in federal prison by this time?
Right after that conviction, he goes in.
He goes to federal prison.
He goes into jail. Well, no, wait a minute. It may have been just a short while. No. Let me take it back. He stays out on bail.
Okay.
He stays out on bail for maybe 2 years, actually, while the appeals are going on. Okay. So he goes into prison somewhere around 75. He does go in prison in 75. That's
75.
75, late 75. Okay, that's when he goes back to prison. But but I go back to Detroit, and I go back to law school. Three things I think sent me back to law school. That trial, rereading Malcolm's book and his epilogue, where he talks about he wanted to be a lawyer, and for some reason I had forgotten about that. And then the third thing was my daddy. You know, he wanted me to go back. My parents always very, very supportive, nurturing, and supported me in whatever I did.
Did you go back to Wayne?
I went back to Wayne, but so that was something that he wanted, and so I thought I would do that, not only for me, but for him. So I went back to law school. Interestingly enough, I wound up finishing first in my class when I got back in, which is something I never would imagine would have happened, nor was I aiming for. I just basically was very serious about what I was doing at that point. I just wanted to get in there and take care of the business and get out. And so at the end of my first year back, I'm first in the class. University of Michigan wants me. Everybody's all of a sudden sending me letters, to try to get me to go somewhere else. And most of these schools which had rejected me when I had tried to go to them before. So I just said, I'm going to stay at Wayne, and I sent them letters back saying, you didn't want me when I wanted to go there, so I'm just going to stay where I'm at. But we finished law school, and I become very involved during the law school period in the Black Legal Alliance, which is, the black student organization. They do a lot of fighting for affirmative action and against racism in the law school environment. Before I left law school, back in the 70s, the early 70s, I should point out that we at the end of my first year, although I passed, there were about 18 of the 24 blacks in my class who didn't pass, right? And they had, and it was definitely shown that there were some links to racism with some of the professors. So we had a big demonstration then. We literally chained the law school up and closed it down and wasn't going to let anybody go until we got them back in. Ultimately got them all back in. You did. And all of them wound up becoming lawyers, except for two. One wound up going to Africa to do something different, and one wound up doing construction, as a builder. But everybody else came, and they became judges, great communication lawyers, all that kind of stuff.
Now, did you follow the events around the incarceration of the 11 in Mississippi?
Kept working with that.
In what capacity? Because I was involved in that also.
I basically was helping keep communications with the rest of the country in terms of letting them know what was happening. Because I kept coming back and forth down here even then. Even once I got back in law school, I would keep visiting Mississippi, and we would meet. A lot of times we were meeting. I remember at that time we kept meeting in Reverend Perkins' place. What was that called?
John Perkins, Voice of Calvary.
Voice of Calvary. They had a house or something like that.
They did.
And I think we had meetings there quite a few times. But I kept coming. We kept having meetings and doing various different things. At that time, I think we wound up getting an office. I think Martin got an office back on conditions improved to some extent in terms of harassment. But he got an office on Fair Street. He got an office on Fair Street. Not far, for a little while, he had a little small office right close to where that church is, Baptist Church on Fair Street. Fair Street Baptist. Yeah, it was right there. We'd use the Fair Street Baptist Church sometimes for meetings, at that time. So that was, so yes, I definitely stayed in touch. And during that period of time, that was my role, more or less, to be the voice for the RNA 11 around the rest of the country.
LC and I visited the guys while they were
incarcerated. Yeah, I dealt a lot with some of the lawyers, especially the lawyers not only on the criminal side but on the civil side, because they sued. They were one of the main plaintiffs in that suit against the Mississippi penal system. And they won the suit, and it caused them to cause a federal order to be issued against the jails in Mississippi. Now, during that same period, you remember you continued on with the Black National Convention, right? And so I was also the spokesperson for the RNA at a lot of those meetings, you know.
Right.
And went to, not only to Gary, of course, and that was in 1972.
76.
72.
No,
72.
Then we went back
That was
in,
March of 72 in Gary. But you went in 76, 74, 74, 76 you were meeting. But 74, I think the meeting was in, we had a meeting in Arkansas, Little Rock, I remember, and I remember you were there.
Oh, yeah.
We had a meeting in
Yeah,
Little
I
Rock,
went
you were in Little Rock, and I don't remember what
Uh-huh.
year that was, but the meetings continued up to 76. And
Right.
I don't remember where
They went to New Orleans one.
New Orleans, that may have been 76, but I know New Orleans was a very big meeting. But yeah, I was going to all those meetings, but I was doing, so I really became not only the spokesperson for the legal arm, or the legal defense,
Mhm.
but I also really became one of the leading spokesperson for the RNA during that period.
Okay, now there was a split. Describe that.
Okay, now, there was a split in the RNA, first of all, and really before that incident even occurred. That happened in 1969. That was the first split that occurred. In 1969 and 70, between those two, you know, in that period of time, late 69, early 70, literally up into to January, there was a difference between Imari and Gaidi, as we call him, who was Milton Henry, his brother.
Okay, yeah.
As to where they wanted to put the emphasis of what the work we were doing at.
Mhm.
Milton wanted to basically keep the center of the movement in the north and other spots where he could gather resources.
Let me excuse you, gentlemen, for one moment. This is about to run out. Should
Okay.
I put another?
Okay.
Okay.
You want to take the picture before you change it?
Yeah, I
And
can.
I will discontinue this.